Hi everyone, I'm Josh Elliott, and today I will be reviewing A Cure for Wellness, which came out earlier this year, like in February, but you know, I just saw it now, so I'm gonna review it. So, A Cure for Wellness stars Dane DeHaan as this guy named Lockhart. He works for this company, and there's like this really long, like complicated backstory for why he has to go there, but basically, somebody that works at the company is at this wellness center that's in the Swiss Alps. And so Dane DeHaan's character has to go to this wellness center in the Swiss Alps to get this guy and bring him back to the company because the company like wants to pin like crimes on him or something. It's very complicated. So Dane DeHaan, Lockhart, goes to this wellness center. Basically, things are really weird there. None of the patients seem to want to leave. It's not very clear why they're all sick or what exactly the cure is that they're always talking about. And then there's this weird history with the wellness center, and things get really, really weird and like totally bad crazy. Like, this movie is one of the most insane things I have ever seen. This is definitely in like my top 10, probably top 5 most disturbing movies I have ever seen in my life. There is some pretty freaky imagery in this movie that I will not be forgetting anytime soon. This movie does have some pretty good things going for it. A major part of that is how it looks. The visual style of this movie is pretty fantastic, honestly. It was directed by Gore Verbinski. The only things that I've seen him do are the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which are really well done. I also find it really funny that his name is Gore, because that definitely lives up to the movie. So he shoots this movie in this really dark color palette. It's a very gray, everything feels very dried out in this movie. It just feels washed up and old. There are lots of grays and whites. Everything just looks so dull. I absolutely loved that aspect of the story. I loved how this movie looked. It fit the style of the movie perfectly. I mean, that doesn't just go to the direction though. It also goes to cinematography, costume design, production design. All of those played a role in making this movie look the way it did. And it looks pretty phenomenal. Now, the thing with A Cure for Wellness is that it starts off pretty weak, because it has like this whole backstory about the company that I already went into for like the first 10 minutes. And I mean, yeah, exposition, but like the only reason it's there is just so Lockhart has a reason to go to the wellness center and a reason to stay at the wellness center. But so it starts off weak, but then it gets pretty good. The first hour and a half of this movie are really good, but the rest of the movie isn't. Now you're probably thinking like, well, I mean, that's just the final 30 minutes. I mean, that's probably not that long. At least most of the movie's good. Oh no, there's not 30 minutes left of the movie. There's another hour left, because this movie is 2.5 hours. Something that I admired was that A Cure for Wellness, it's a relatively slow story. It largely relies on build-up, so they can't have a lot going on in the first half of the story. They have to wait for like the final act to do all of that. And so there are a ton of layers to this story, like a ton. Very carefully spread the layers out throughout the entire story to keep it from getting boring. And they do that very successfully. It kept me interested the entire 2.5 hours, I'm gonna be honest. But the thing is, once it starts getting into answering the questions, that's when the movie starts heading downhill. The movie seems to think it's about things that I didn't care about. It seems to be distracted from its own plot. There are so many subtexts to this story. There is an overall reason for everything that happens. Like, everything does somewhat get answered. I thought the movie was gonna be about one thing, but then it was actually about another. So when it starts to go in that direction, I felt like the third act wasn't as built up as it needed to be, even though it had 2.5 hours to do it. This movie also has way too many ideas. There's a whole backstory about the history of this place, and that's eventually what the story becomes about. Then there's this girl named Hannah that Dane DeHaan's character basically befriends. Then there's the creepy eels. There's the stuff about the water. All of these things do make sense on paper, I guess. But in the movie, they just get so overwhelming with the amount of information that's being unloaded onto us. A Cure for Wellness is basically like a connect the dots puzzle. And you know how when you have a connect the dots puzzle and there are so many dots that you can basically get an idea of what the picture is supposed to be before you even connect any of them. That's what A Cure for Wellness is. There are so many aspects to the story that you can kind of get what it's about, but it doesn't bother to connect any of the dots for the audience. It just shows us the dots and we're like, okay, I guess that's what the story's about. I basically had to take to Wikipedia to figure out everything about the story. There's also a subplot involving Dane DeHaan's character. Later on in the movie, he starts to believe he's going crazy. And that's a really cool idea of the story. But the movie doesn't go anywhere with it. It abandons that idea after like 15 minutes of screen time. For a movie with 2.5 hours of a runtime, I feel like they would savor every single moment, but they really didn't. So A Cure for Wellness, a very weird movie. It absolutely masters the style that it is trying to achieve in the sense of a dull, washed out location. It does phenomenally with the direction, cinematography, production design, costume design, also the score. The score is phenomenal. The acting is really good. Everyone just looks so pale. Dane DeHaan gives a great performance, and it's very interesting to see how he basically descends into madness as the movie goes along. And for the first hour and a half, it has some really cool ideas that really keep you invested and keep you guessing. But then once it starts to go into the whole, is he insane or is he not insane? That's when the movie starts to take a downhill turn, just because it starts abandoning some ideas for others. And even though all of the questions are somewhat answered, I guess, on paper, none of them are fully explained well enough for the audience to fully get everything that happened in this movie. So I'm going to give A Cure for Wellness a 6 out of 10. So, what did you think of A Cure for Wellness? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe to High School Film Nerds because that really helps us out. And be sure to check out more of our reviews. Bye!